Good afternoon. Hope everybody stayed warm over the long President's Day weekend, and I'm also sure that nobody minded the snow day that was thrown in there for added good measure. Today, we're fortunate to have two more senior speeches. Please help me welcome to the podium in the Thurber Arts Center seniors Jack Johnson and Sarah Kate Childs.
Good afternoon. As Randolph High School students, I'm sure we can all relate to constantly being asked the question, where are you going to college? Most of the time, I would name some random college or say Harvard as a joke, because I had no idea where I wanted to go. After being asked the same question hundreds of times, I started to think that maybe people were asking the wrong question. I thought that people should have been asking, what will you do in college, rather than where will you go to college? What I accomplish and study in college is much more important to me than where I do it. This point of view has allowed me to take my college rejections with a grain of salt and approach my application process with more confidence. Colleges have a limited number of spots to fill and try to entice the maximum number of students into applying in order to make their college appear more selective and prestigious. Schools receive thousands of applications, and to sort through them, your application will only be looked at for 5 to 15 minutes. During these few minutes, it's hard to believe that anyone will truly get to know you or appreciate that great essay you wrote. Nobel Prize winner and behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman provided great insight into the potential flaws of college admissions in his study of Israeli judges. The judges spent all day reading cases while only allocating a meager 6 minutes per case. While tracking what time every decision was made, researchers came to a saddening realization. After lunch or snack breaks, judges would grant 65% of requests, but as the day went on and the judges grew tired and hungry, the number of requests they granted decreased. By the end of their session, when judges were the most hungry and tired, the number of requests they granted dropped to nearly 0%. This study is about the idea of ego depletion, which states that self-control and willpower uses up a limited amount of resources. As the judges grew tired and hungry, they started to lose willpower and defaulted to the answer they would give most of the time, which was no. This study serves as great evidence that Snickers commercials are true, and you are not you when you're hungry. These Israeli judges are in a similar situation as the college admissions officers that will look at your application. Readers look at applications all day, while only spending around 6 minutes with each application. As the day goes on, they also grow tired and hungry, causing their ego to deplete. Some colleges have extremely low acceptance rates, so for most of the applications, the reader has the default answer of no. Just like the judges, college readers with a depleted ego will be more likely to respond to your application with a default answer of no. I would love to think that the only reason I will get rejected is due to hungry admissions officers, but that is not the truth. Admissions officers' mood likely plays a role in admission, but is not the deciding factor. Feeding your admission officer Gordon Ramsay's filet mignon cannot get you into Harvard or out of jail. Rejections do not mean you're a failure as a student, but are a combination of bad luck, a limited number of spots, and some bad lunches. To remove luck from the admissions process, parents have paid millions in under-the-table deals. Hearing about this scandal, I started wondering if attending an Ivy League or prestigious school is even worth that much. I ended up finding that where a student attends college is not as important as what they do there. For example, class ranking gives students greater opportunities at less prestigious universities. A study by Vanderbilt found that a student in the bottom 85% of the Harvard's economics PhD program will publish fewer papers than a student in the top 1% of a not top 30 program. The few students in the top 15% of the Harvard program had a great advantage by attending Harvard, but the students who were not in the top 15% of Harvard were at a great disadvantage because they were in such a competitive program. If the bottom 85% of Harvard students attended less prestigious programs, they could be at the top of their class and have more opportunities to publish papers. The author Malcolm Gladwell put it best when he said, "It is better to be a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big pond." As small fish in a big pond, students go from being the top of their high school class to to mediocre as compared to all their surrounding students. Eaten up by the competition, some students are forced to switch to less challenging majors in order to maintain their grades. But as a big fish in a small pond, students can have more opportunities. As a top student, they can achieve a higher class rank, which opens many options. Because professors are the people who decide which students get to conduct research, having a higher class rank, having their attention, is more important than attending a prestigious college. Also, students who choose to attend less selective colleges will not have to switch their majors in order to maintain their grades. On top of everything else, less selective colleges tend to be cheaper. While looking at colleges, I initially only looked at the U.S. News rankings or how selective they were. I have come to realize that the rankings are not as important as finding a place that provides great academic opportunities and an enjoyable environment. If I knew this as a lowerclassman, I would have changed the way I approach schoolwork. I just completed classwork to maintain a good GPA. I would memorize material for a test and then forget it the next week. During the sophomore class of Human Phys, I had to memorize countless bones, but if you asked me what the xiphoid process is, I would have to Google the answer. I was able to look like I was learning material without actually remembering a single idea or skill. I believed that there was no purpose in the things that we were learning except to get a good grade. This was wrong because much of the material we were taught establishes the foundation for more complex and useful topics that we will learn later in life. For example, I've always viewed studying poetry as completely worthless, but Mr. G has proven me wrong. While analyzing poetry, I must find meaning in the text, create a convincing thesis and argument to back up my analysis. I expect and hope to never analyze Shakespeare in my career, but the practice of developing arguments from complicated texts for media is a skill that is needed in most jobs. An investment banker or doctor must be able to develop arguments from business memos or a patient's weird description of how their shoulder or stomach hurts. As students who are forced to endure the misery of timed essays about poems, we have the foundation of how to form arguments and ideas from seemingly meaningless material. To avoid the same mistakes I made, I would recommend studying your material over time and not cramming the whole test or exam into one night. Lots of the material we learned will be revisited in our future college classes, and studying the material over time allows it to enter your long-term memory so you can be prepared. As Randolph students, we're lucky to be asked where we want to go to college and not if we plan on attending college. College is a fantastic opportunity, and attending more selective universities is the right decision for some people. These are things I have come to believe during my college admissions journey, and it's okay to believe something completely different than me. For us seniors, who will be hearing our decisions soon, I would like to remind everyone not to get upset about the places they get rejected. It's not the end of the world, and you can always blame it on an admissions officer being hungry or having a bad lunch. For the younger students, I would like to remind you not to make the mistakes I did. Instead of memorizing material like the unit circle for one test, try to learn and understand the concept, as it sadly does not go away. Avoid college rankings or acceptance rates while looking for the college you want to attend, and try to find a place that excites you as somewhere where you can excel and enjoy. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Personally, I've struggled a lot with my identity in high school. I wanted to be seen as an athlete, but not labeled as a jock. I wanted to be smart, but I did not want people to think that I was a nerd. I wanted to express my faith as a Christian, but I was worried about being judged. And in reality, I ended up boxing myself in. I put labels on myself and limited myself before anyone else even had the chance. There was a brief period my junior year when I decided I wanted to attend an Ivy League school. On the first day of our college counseling meetings, I walked in very confidently. I had been touring schools for a while and felt that I had a solid understanding of what the college process was going to look like moving forward. Ms. Fornash stood at the back of the room while flipping through her introduction slides. She dryly said, "When looking at colleges, we need to consider the climate and the weather." She then told us to get on Naviance and fill out basic questions about the location and climate of the schools we wanted to attend. Everyone went right to work, while I sat there puzzled. I had previously failed to consider Ms. Fornash's obvious statement. I needed to think about how far away I was going to be, and if it was going to be hot or cold. but somehow I had not taken the time to think these things through on my own. As soon as I left the meeting, I called my mom to inform her that I hated the cold, so there was no way I was even going to apply to schools up north anymore. We both laugh at this story now because it was evident that it was going to be freezing at an Ivy League school. But I was so caught up in how prestigious it would look that I forgot I would be miserable almost every time I stepped outside. I think we are all guilty of being caught up in perfecting an image of ourselves and trying to portray who we think we should be, that we often forget who we are and who we really want to be. Randolph is a very competitive school, and for 4 years of our lives, we are all trying to make the best college application possible. But we cannot let what appears on this resume define us. Wanting recognition for your work or your talent is completely normal, and I am for sure at fault for striving to get an award. But we have to be sure to draw a line between things like awards and our personal identities. Because your GPA, ACT score, volunteer hours, whatever it may be, doesn't define you. Only you can define yourself. If we try to be the person we want others to think we are, we won't ever get to be who we really are. How many times have we all been asked, what do we want to do when we grow up? Countless times adults ask me things like, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to major in? But I think there's a bigger question that we often forget to ask ourselves, and that is, who are we? These big questions about our future that we will continue to be asked a million times cannot be answered until we really discover ourselves. And here's what's so amazing about high school. It is the time to start finding out who we are. There are so many great opportunities here at Randolph to try new things. Join a club, a sport, take that extra course. When we push ourselves out of our comfort zones, we might just uncover a new passion or interest. As many of you know, my youngest sister Bailey is adopted. When my family began fostering her when I was in middle school, I had many new experiences with the foster care system. I was appalled when I saw what hardships kids in my community were going through. I remember when we were still just fostering Bailey and had to bring her to visitation with her biological family. I walked into the Department of Human Resources for the first time, probably looking like a deer in the headlights. I glanced around, shocked with the number of kids who were my age and having to come visit their parents after school because they were not able to live with them full time. I couldn't imagine having to balance those personal battles and also having to go to school every morning. I wanted to find a way to help kids who didn't have the same opportunities as me, so I started volunteering at Huntsville Inner City Learning Center. In high school, I was able to continue my work at Inner City through the Connect with Kids Club here at school. I was also able to research more about the foster care system in my iSearch my junior year, and eventually wrote my college essay on all of these things in my English class this past fall. Following my heart and plugging myself into the community was a decision I never regretted. It paved the way for me to develop a strong passion for social justice and inspired me to pursue going to law school. Letting my new passion define where I wanted to go in the future was a much better choice than picking a college for prestige and pride. I am beyond ecstatic to go into college with a career path that I love, and that would never have been possible if I hadn't had those new experiences and been at a school like Randolph where my interests could flourish. Being able to join clubs, research my passions, and also have so many great teachers that provided the resources and opportunities I needed to extend my learning from the classroom into the greater community has fully prepared me to pursue my dreams to the next level. I want to leave you all with 2 challenges. First, push yourself to embrace your identity. Be proud of who you are and what you are passionate about, and do not be afraid to express yourself. And secondly, I want to challenge our community to not box others in. I think we do a decent job here at Randolph, refraining from judgments, and overall, we are a pretty embracing community. But there's always room for improvement. We can all do a better job of accepting those who have different passions and interests in us, and encouraging each other to branch out rather than holding each other back. In Mr. G's AP Lit class the other week, we were discussing Greek philosophy. Mr. G introduced our class to the work of Plato, in particular, the allegory of the Den. It begins with these slaves who were chained inside of a dark cave and can only see the shadows of different objects off the cave walls, until one slave was unchained and taken up into the real world. At first, he is blinded by the light and cannot see around him, but when his eyes adjust, he is able to see the real objects for himself and realizes that the distorted shadows he saw before were not real. When he tries to go back down to the cave and tell the other slaves of the truth and what he had discovered, they did not believe him and thought he was crazy. When reading this story, it struck me that these ancient concepts are still true today. All of our experiences bias us and keep us from seeing the truth. It is so easy to think that someone is wrong or just weird when they do not see things the way we do. I know I can be ignorant and often assume I know the truth. It is easy to forget that everyone around me also has their own truths. But what Plato reminded me was that even when my friends' beliefs are not the same as mine, it doesn't make them wrong. And the same goes for identities. We all have different passions and interests, and if we want to have the strongest community possible, we need to work together each day to refrain from judgments and allow everyone to express themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's always great to hear from our insightful seniors. We have a couple free spots remaining if you're a senior and still would like to give a speech this year. Please see Mrs. Hillink if you're interested. This week's athletic schedule has definitely been shuffled a bit by the weather, but boys basketball has a big week and a huge game tonight at New Hope High School in the sub-regional. Last week, the guys showed such resilience in a fierce overtime win over St. John Paul II. Good luck to that team as they compete in this postseason. Boys and girls soccer have a game tomorrow versus Sparkman. Tennis will also compete Thursday versus Arab. And baseball begins their season with games against Whitesburg Christian and Lee this week. In other announcements, we're excited that 5 of our seniors have advanced as National Merit finalists. Congratulations to Alex Covert, Jack Johnson, Marco Milinkovic, Elizabeth Shannon, and Avery Trice. Last week, our chapter of the National Honor Society held its annual induction ceremony. Congratulations to all of the seniors, juniors, and sophomores who received this great honor. In total, we had over 60 students recognized this year for their outstanding academic performance and character. As a reminder, we still have the coat drive taking place. If you have a coat to donate, please bring it to the bins outside Coach Morris's office. And speaking of Coach Morris, congrats to his advisory for rocking the most jerseys on our recent Jersey Day. As their reward, they'll receive chicken minis from Chick-fil-A on the morning of their choosing. Also, I don't think we recognized our advisory trivia contest winners from before winter holiday break. Those prizes will go to Senior Hoppy McQueen's advisory. Congratulations. If you're interested in applying for a YLC grant, reach out to Lily Naderi or check the link in my Canvas message from last week. I'll also be sending out an email to parents today to help them access our registration information meeting recording tonight. This is simply an opportunity for them to better understand the registration process that you have already begun. Remember, if there's a recommendation that you did not get that you're interested in, begin with a conversation with the teacher you currently have in that subject. Then, the next step would be to talk to the teacher of the class you want to take next year. Our goal, as always, is to make sure that you have an appropriate challenge to your course load in classes that you're interested in taking. The priority is not just to game your schedule to simply look good on a transcript for college admissions. Oftentimes, when this happens, and that's the case, we end up having conversations into the next school year around moving back into another class, or we see lower grades, which quite honestly don't look as good to those colleges, which is counterproductive to that idea. All of our courses here at Randolph are at a college preparatory level, and we'll prep you for your studies at the college level, right? And so as a Randolph student, successfully taking those courses, you will have choices when it comes to colleges. Thank you for your time and attention today. Also, thanks to the SGA for these surprise Valentines last week. Be excellent to each other, and seniors, you are dismissed.